The Dice Tower is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. This episode is sponsored by The Op, also known as USAopoly.
The Dice Tower, episode 707, Plastic versus Wood.
Welcome to The Dice Tower, a podcast about board games and card games, and especially the people who play them.
In today's show, we happen to cover some refreshed older games. We're gonna race to space, take a breath, and wrap up with a very pretty game pie. I'm Suzanne Sheldon.
And I'm Andy Hutchinson.
Welcome back, everybody. It's great to have you joining us for another episode of the Dice Tower podcast. If you are listening to our show, there's a reasonable chance that maybe you've checked out BoardGameGeek.com, BGG.com, which is, of course, the biggest central repository for board game information and data, and even community in many ways in the hobby and in the industry. Well, their annual awards are open for voting now. Mandy, I don't know if you've had a chance to check it out yet, but I think looking at it just reinforces that in spite of everything, 2020 was not a bad year for games.
Oh, not at all. Some really good stuff has come out. People have been talking about a lot of good things. So in regards to games, I think you're 100% right.
You can go over to BoardGameGeek.com, cast your votes, whether, cooperative game, artwork, light medium games. And this year I thought it was really interesting, Mandy. They have a zoomable game section this time.
Zoomable? Oh, as in Zoom.
Kind of acknowledgeable as an acknowledgement right. of what the year was in the pandemic.
Like
so
I
hey.
like that.
And you know what one of the games nominated is?
Oh no, please do tell.
My City.
Oh, come on. That one was fantastic. Good choice.
We can attest, but of course, Forgotten Waters is in there.
Absolutely.
Hues and Cues, Monstrosity. There's some solid, actually, it's a great list of games just in general, zoomable or not. But
absolutely.
Folks, have your voice. Contribute to a board game award and go in there and drop your votes. And it's really nice. It does stack rankings, so you can just kind of rank how you like it and support the games that you think deserve that kind of acknowledgement. Last episode, our show title was MCU, and our poll in the Board Game Geek Guild was, hey, what's your favorite MCU film? Now, Mandy, you and I were very smart because we specifically said favorite and not best.
Exactly, because that would have been a whole different list.
See, sometimes we do things the right way.
I got it, yes.
Your votes were tabulated, and here's where you all, Dice Tower fans, came in. Thor Ragnarok took the number one spot with 16%. Winter Soldier came in second with 13.5%. Guardians of the Galaxy came in third with 12.5%. And then Endgame came in fourth place with 12%. And really, those were the four big ones. And then all the other films had a smattering of votes here and there that, that makes sense. But those were the four big ones. The only MCU film in the Dice Tower poll that received 0 votes, Iron Man 3. I gotta admit, I thought there may have been at least one more film that would have gotten 0 votes, but nope, it got a vote.
I don't know if I'm surprised, to be honest, about that one.
Yeah. And of course, 4% of you said that you don't like any of them, and that's
fair.
cool.
Yeah.
Not every movie can be for every person. And 5% of you all said you hadn't watched any of them. Also fine.
Yeah.
That was a fun one to see, and I think the conversation that followed in the comments that I really enjoyed especially was the chat about just how the MCU is an epic, right? It spans so many films, and so it's difficult to judge any single film because what it contributes to the master story arc really matters as well. And I think a lot of people said they voted for Endgame just because it felt like such a powerful culmination of so much work on, the part of the filmmakers, but also investment as a fan kind of going on this journey through, 20 films, right? So Really cool discussion in the comments there. Thanks, everybody, for contributing.
And more to come. I've been online. There are there's like 12 films in the works or something like that.
Yeah,
so
it's like phase 2. I'm pretty excited about it.
And Thor Ragnarok, I'm not surprised that it was one of the top choices. And I think it's because they did a pivot on those movies. I feel like they injected more humor into the movie.
Come on, you got to give it up for Taika Waititi, because
that's exactly it. And I really think that made people look at it a bit differently and enjoy it in a different light. So I'm not surprised at that. So some good stuff.
This week, we went back to kind of a board game-centric topic for our title and our upcoming episode poll. Wood versus plastic. I don't want to couch it in terms of like Euro game fans versus more Amerithrash game fans or anything like that. But all things being equal, mechanisms, even aesthetics being the same, would you prefer custom wood meeples or plastic miniatures in your game when you play it? Which one do you just prefer? Or do you have no preference? We'll drop that poll into the Dice Towers Board Game Geek Guild like we normally do, and we'll see where you all land. I don't know. Part of me feels like it's going to be a really obvious surge of votes in one direction.
I agree.
You all surprise me once in a while, so maybe you will this time too. And Mandy, I know that you did some streams. I streamed the new expansion for Villagers with Sinister Fish Games over the Aw Shucks weekend. I know that you've been doing some streaming as well.
Yeah. We did Wavelength, which I've never played. Everybody on the panel owned it and has played the game except for me. And I have to say, I have a weird mind, so it's really hard for me to play games like that with people that I don't know. So one of my clues, I won't get into too many details, but one of my clues was old division moving into new division. So it was great because the teachers in the chat knew exactly where I was going with it. And my team was like, they really had a conversation. It was impressive. It really impressed me, the conversation you could have about something like that. They just missed the answer by like a smidge, and smidge was the word because we had to often take into account the smidge factor. So we learned that later on. But overall, I really liked the game, really enjoyed the group I played with, so it was really fun. And during that time, I swear, I think as soon as I said butterflies, and I mentioned the podcast where I asked for people to tell me about butterflies in, the language that they speak or if they know it in another language, and the chat just exploded with a whole bunch of people. I'm like, wow. I'm like, you gotta have to send me an email because I can't write these all down right now. So some of the ones I picked up, and the first one is actually really embarrassing because it's one of those things where I should speak Portuguese, but I don't. Long story. Borboleta is butterfly in Portuguese. Nabi in Korean. Woodip in Cantonese, and motil in Polish. So thank you for throwing those my way. I love learning these new words. And come on, if you have others that I haven't mentioned, keep it coming.
This is pretty cool. You're up to like 10 or 12.
Yeah.
I love that.
This is great. So exciting.
Thanks, everybody. Oh, Mandy, that's such a lovely discussion.
Love it.
No butterflies in today's games played, but a little bit of flight here and there, maybe.
Oh, yes. Lots of flight.
So, what have you been playing lately?
Well, I had a productive couple of weeks here getting some games played. First one, I played solo. So I'm going to start with that. I would love to revisit this game multiplayer, but for now I'm going to talk about the solo play that I had. The game is called Space Race, and it's designed by, now you're going to have to give me a moment, these names I'm learning to pronounce, so I'm going to give this a try here. So designed by Martin Jihojic, Michal Mikije, and Jan Sukal. And I apologize if I didn't pronounce those incorrectly. Please let me know how to pronounce it correctly, but I looked it up and I think I was pretty close, I hope. Art is by Dalibor Karcha, and it's published by Boardcubator. It plays 1 to 5 players in 45 to 90 minutes. I couldn't find a price online, and I don't know, Suzanne, if you know this. I know it was a Kickstarter, but I didn't have a price offhand.
I don't have one, sorry.
No, that's okay. So I apologize for that, but it's not currently, I don't think it's available in online stores as of yet. So Space Race is a game that happens over I think it's 7 decades, I guess what they call it. So 7 rounds of space conquest. And you're trying to establish space agencies. So you want to expand them, by developing breakthroughs. And you want to develop them by using your cards. So engineers, technology, space programs. And you get those from a place called the universe. So these are cards that are out on the board. What's interesting about that is that cards you have in your hand, you cannot play them directly to your agency or to your area to use them. You actually have to put them out in the unexplored universe. And then there's a step in the game where they then come out to the explored universe or the universe where you can then acquire those cards. But it's based on control cards that you play. So the control cards are like any game where you have a set amount of cards, and once you've played that card, you can no longer play that card because it's out on the board. And the next time you play another control card, it goes on top of the previous one. So you can't use the benefits of that card. So each of these control cards have symbols on them, which tells you to take a card from the area that's listed. And they're different colors, right? And the board will tell you which one you can take from. And when you place that out, you are able to action the action on the control card, plus the card you've now been able to play in your agency area. So these are some things that you want to build up on. You can build certain colors. You can work on different kind of colors or different areas to get bonuses, points, that sort of thing. There are projects in the game that you want to work toward, and this allows you to take your astronauts and put them out towards select projects when you meet that condition. But you have to hurry because projects can close before you finish. And other characters can, so in this case, I had the AI can also join the project. And depending on where your meeples are, will depend on those points that you get. So that's something else you have to consider. They have a breakthrough zone where you can put astronauts in, and that gets you points because you want to have control, if you can, of the 4 areas. Because if not, you're going to lose out on points. And that can actually add up to a lot of points every time you check that scoring. So you can notice so far that there are a lot of different ways that you can score in the game. Definitely another area, it's eluding me right now, but there's another area on your player area where you can collect cards where they're just collected, and those count for points at the end of the game. The AI in the game gets a lot of these cards because there's a phase in the game where we draw cards and it goes into our hand. That's at the beginning phase. And the AI gets a card directly into this pile of cards. So they automatically, that's a point for them. And that happens every round. So they're guaranteed 7 points from that plus any others they acquire throughout the game. So the game ends after these rounds, 7 rounds, and then you calculate points that you have from your cards, the ones that I was telling you about that you collect, and you're going to get points throughout the game based on how you've actioned kind of the row of cards you've placed out, those breakout zones, and projects. So there are lots of ways to gain points. So after those 7 rounds, you count everything up that's remaining, and those are your points. So they actually do the points in years or decades, so it's kind of fun how they do that. This game, oh boy, I did not enjoy this game solo. Let me just start off with that. At all. I found that the solo for me was too much upkeep. Now, there are people who play solo games. I'm like, oh, that doesn't bother me. I just found that there was a lot of, in this round, I draw a card. Okay, but for the AI, I have to draw a card and put it in this part of their board. And there were a lot of exceptions to things that I did. Like, it was very rare to have something that they did exactly the same that I did. So I really had to account for that. And this is a game where you can play with several AIs, depending on the difficulty. And for me, one AI was enough for me to manage. And even then, I was like, yeah. I'm like, I have to look in the book. And it was a lot for me. So for me, as someone who's not really a solo gamer, I like some. I did not enjoy the solo at all. Now, that being said, I think if I played this multiplayer, I would appreciate this game a lot more, and I think I would actually enjoy it. I liked the use of the cards, and it really made you think, if I put out this control card now and it has all these benefits on it, I can't get it later unless I have something that allows me to pick it back up, but that's not guaranteed. Putting cards out into the unexplored universe in order to get them into the universe, again, not guaranteed that I'm going to get those cards, because in initiative turn order, if the AI or the other people that you were playing with went first, they could take that card for themselves, and now you don't have that card. So now you have to come up with another plan of action. I like that, but I'm that type of player, so I really like that potential having to change my strategy throughout. So that I quite enjoyed. The icons and iconography on the board, it's overwhelming at first. You're like, oh gosh, it's a lot. But once you actually get it, it makes sense. So I found myself referring to the book less and less. I'm like, oh yeah, this symbol means this, the way they laid it out was clear, and I appreciate that. So, and it was consistent. Nothing is worse when you have something here, it means one thing, and then something else on the board, it means something else. So I very much appreciated that quite a bit. This also had an expansion. I haven't played that yet, but that's something I might investigate when I can play with more people, and I think it's recommended to do so. So there's lots of content in the box. Components, you have ships. So you actually have like modeled ships that you can use. Now you're just using them as your pieces to move up the track. But I thought that was nice. Other than that, it's cards for the most part. Card quality was quite good. It had that soft feel, but not shiny, so they get fingerprinty, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I did appreciate it. I don't know how else to explain it, but the texture was good. I mean, was it super amazing? No, but it was good for what it was. The rulebook. I thought overall the rulebook was very clear. There were a couple things I questioned, but overall, I think they did a good job. The size of the rulebook, I know this is petty, is a problem for me. The box is huge.
Yeah, it's a big box compared to the first edition, for sure.
And the rulebook is one of those rulebooks where it's the same size as the box. Now you've opened it, and you've literally got, 2 pages of box size, of that size. And for me, it takes up a lot of room, and people are like, oh, it's not a big deal. It kind of is. I would prefer a more compact rulebook. It just makes it easier to have it out and to refer to it. Again, little petty thing, but these are something that helps me to have them out. I did appreciate the steps being on the back, which is great, so at least you needed that. But if you were referring to solo and regular game, you did have to do a lot of flipping, and it's quite large. So I would have preferred a slightly smaller rulebook in that regard. But overall, I really enjoyed the gameplay. I like cards that can be multi-use. I also like it when you have to play a card, and that's it. Like, you can't use this card now, and you have to figure out something else to continue with your strategy or change it based on what other players are doing. Lots of ways to score points. I'm all about that as well. So Space Race, for me, was a really good game. And Suzanne actually told me that another version of this existed before, and I think it was just cards. Like, this has a board. And
right.
This takes up a lot of room. That's a whole other story. But it's
So is the box size kind of like that standard 12-inch by 12-inch, downforce, ticket to ride kind of size?
I'm trying to think off the top of my head.
Or is it smaller?
No, it's not smaller. It's big.
Okay, because, the original Space Race was maybe a 6-inch by 6-inch box that's maybe like 3 inches tall or 4 inches tall.
Right.
And that came out 5 years ago. And it had a different aesthetic on the cover, for sure. Right. I really like the look.
Oh, that's great.
This new edition. Mm-hmm. It looks really pretty.
Very clean.
Aesthetically.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is definitely apparently Board Cubators like readdressing the game and trying to bring it up to maybe what gamers today are looking for in terms of interaction and component quality and things like that. I'm not sure. But yeah, it used to just be this very compact not little, but very compact stuffed card game in a box. Yeah.
Okay. So, and I didn't know that. And and you touched on a really good point. So I probably should have mentioned that earlier. The art, very well done. I really thought it was quite vibrant, and maybe because I like the time framing of the art, the way that if they had a certain person that was mentioned, it fit the time they were talking about, and the colors were quite nice. But the game itself is quite clean, like the blue box, the blue background. It's good. The game is large. It takes up a lot of room. I have like a square table here.
Yeah, the board looks huge in the photos you posted.
It's a very long board. I'm not a fan of those boards because they're really hard at a table. Like, you're reaching to get stuff. I mean, that's, again, a petty thing for me, but it does take up quite a bit of room. So that could do bear that in mind. But Space Race for me is, I think I would like it multiplayer. I didn't like it solo, but definitely one you should consider. So there you go.
I appreciate your insights in there, and I think some of the things that you talked about, and there's a bigger discussion about how people who listen to people like you, Mandy, or people like me, or Tom or Eric, talk about games, it really helps to know the person and repeat listens and get to have a sense, right? Because I think one thing that you did really well as you're discussing Space Race is kind of outlining why the solo wasn't for you.
Right.
And I think that there are solo players out there that literally the things that you're like, this is why I don't care for the solo.
Right.
They would be going, oh no, I like that kind of complexity in a solo game.
Absolutely.
And so I really appreciate that you kind of went into those details there. First up for me this episode, an update to an older game, and arguably we could have done a shelf staple on this kind of thing because it's a revive of a 2005 game, which on one hand, when I say 2005, it doesn't sound that long ago, but then when I say it's 16 years old, I go, whoa! That is Royal Visit, which is a Reiner Knizia game, and this is published by Yellow, but this actually was released ages ago, 15 years ago, as Times Square in that Cosmos 2-player line.
I love how 15 years ago is ages ago.
I know. That's why I qualified it. I went back. And I have the old Times Square edition because I kind of obsessively collect the Cosmos 2-player line. And here comes Royal Visit, new art, a new theme and setting on it. New art is by Tara Akitsu, Klaus Steffen, and Mirko Suzuki. This is going to retail in the United States for $25, Royal Visit. So now, where it used to kind of be like this entertainment sense of Times Square, and you're trying to draw, I think, an entertainer or a performer or a bar hopper, now it's all about royalty. So you have a king, you have a jester or wizard, and you have 2 guards. This is a tug-of-war game that's driven by cards. The first thing you're going to notice when you buy the game or when you open the game is that it's beautiful. It's a really lovely production. I love the updated art style above the old Times Square 100%. Like, just aesthetically, Royal Visit, 100% a better thing for me personally. It's got this kind of classic king and jester and wizard setting, but the art style really elevates it for me. And you're going to get 5 chunky wooden pawns with fully painted characters on those pawns. So it's really obvious who's who, and they come in different colors. And then the board is actually a fabric board that rolls up and rolls out. And it's just a big, long, like probably 24-inch long board, but maybe only 6 inches wide. And then you get a deck of cards. And again, the art on the cards is beautiful. And how this works is that the cards are associated with the different characters. There's wizards, there's guards, etc. And on your turn, you can just play a certain number of cards related to the same character. So if I play multiple wizard cards, I'm going to add up their values and I'm going to move the wizard that many spaces towards my end of that board because the board has sections in it. The center is the fountain, and then you kind of go to the either side has kind of a general area, and then at the very, very end of the board, each player has their own court. And ultimately, you can win the game by getting the king into your court on your side of the board, using these cards to manipulate and maneuver the different pawns on the board. Of course, there are rules that govern how they move. The king always has to be between the guards. And then some of the cards have special abilities on them. So, for example, if you play a jester card, you can pull the king to the jester space where the jester is. Or you can move the guards. When normally you can move one guard, now you can move both guards at the same time, and that kind of thing. So it's clever card play so that you're tugging the characters back and forth, trying to get them into the position that you want them in to hopefully get the king into the end. Now, that is fairly challenging in many ways with this back and forth game. It's tightly balanced for 2 players. So then if you go through the deck twice, when you shuffle it and then you finish it a second time, that is also the game end. And then whichever player has the king on their side of the center of the board will be the winner of the game in that scenario, which quite frankly, I've lost and, well, no, I've mostly lost. I think I won once. That's a very feasible end to the game, depending on how you and your opponent are playing. I think Times Square was a good game. I liked it. I have it. I mean, it stayed in my collection. You know, I like these tug-of-war games typically a lot. I think that Royal Visit elevated it in almost every way. One rule got changed, I think, that was interesting, and it's the rule that lets you discard cards to refresh your hand if you kind of get stuck with a stinky hand. I don't know how I feel about losing that rule, to be honest with you. And I did not play Royal Visit re-implementing that rule.
Oh.
Which I probably should have, but I don't think there's any significant... I think that's the only significant rule change between Royal Visit and Times Square. So you can get in a situation where your hand isn't the best. There is that feeling of luck depending on what cards you draw and whether that contributes to what you want to be doing. Oh, my next move, I really want to move that guard. Oh, great, I have no guard cards. That kind of thing. I like Royal Visit. I like Times Square. I don't love it. It's not my favorite in the Cosmos 2-player line, and it's not my favorite Reinhard Knizia game. I do like that tug-of-war play. I do think that there's plenty of space for you to be clever and thoughtful about how you're playing your cards to kind of maximize on what you're dealt and what you have to deal with. I think sometimes you can get tricksy in how you maneuver, and you can try to kind of almost bluff your opponent to thinking you're going to make a certain kind of move. Maybe you don't play all of the cards for a certain character and you hold that back a little bit so you can have that big explosive move next round that they weren't prepared for. I think that it is a simple rule set. It's a beautiful production, and it's a nice 2-player game. Does it blow my socks off beyond the aesthetics? No, because it's a 16-year-old game. But if you liked Times Square and you wish that you had an updated version, I definitely recommend Royal Visit. And if you're in a 2-player situation where you're playing a ton of 2-player games and you hadn't tried Times Square before, you might want to check out Royal Visit. That tug of war and that card play can be a lot of fun. So, your mileage is going to vary on this one. I think if I had to rate Royal Visit, which I've never done on this show, and I don't know why I'm even bringing it up now, but, I think it's going to fall slightly below a 7 for me.
Okay.
For what it's worth. So, not my favorite, but not a bad game. It's just that there are so many great 2-player games. This one, other than the aesthetics, just doesn't quite make that leap for me. So that's Royal Visit.
Even with the update, does it feel dated? You know how sometimes games can, even though it has an update, the mechanics or even just the flow feels dated? Does it fall into that, or no, it's better?
I like that question, Maddie, because I would suggest, for me, it does not feel dated.
Okay.
It doesn't feel old. I like that tug of war. To this day, I still like that tug of war. I like the way the card play works. I think if I want to play a 2-player game, I can think of a lot of other 2-player only games I am going to pull out before this one.
Understood. No, that makes it a bit clearer. All right, the next game I'm going to talk about is interesting. I'll save my thoughts for the end, but I definitely had something in mind when I saw it and then when I played it. So 2 different reactions there. So Pan Am, this is designed by Prospero Hall. Art is also by Prospero Hall, and it's published by Funko Games. It's for 2 to 4 players, and it plays in about 60 minutes, and it's priced at around $35. So in this game, players are playing against Pan American Airways, and they're trying to build their own kind of travel empire. So you're trying to gain landing rights to areas, but keep in mind that these can be sold later, possibly by Pan Am, to Pan Am. You can buy planes so you can reach longer areas. So you have those routes which may only require a plane that can travel kind of a 2 area, a 3, a 4, and you buy planes based on that. And try to make those connections as long as you can to kind of benefit monetarily from those routes. Some things that can happen in the game, as I said before, are stocks can rise, and this is important because in order to win the game, you need to have the most stocks. And every round a card gets flipped, so like an event, and it tells you how much stocks are going to be for the game. So sometimes it's high, sometimes it's low, and sometimes it's just, you have no idea. It could stay the same, but often it's increasing when it gets to those higher rounds. And a condition happens that may prevent you from doing something, or perhaps give you some money in the game that can help you out. In the game, you can build airports to help you access some of these routes, collect cards that have the location names on them, which again, you can either discard a certain amount of cards to claim a location or have that specific location in your area. You have spaces where it allows you to build those routes, and you also have a space that gives you cards, which kind of are great for end game and during game benefits. And finally, an area where you can get planes. Like I was talking about before, you can get smaller planes for those shorter routes and larger planes for those longer routes. And keeping in mind that some of those planes are not available in certain rounds, so you are limited. So that can play a little bit into how you play the game. There's also a phase in the game where a die gets rolled. And depending on the symbol that is rolled on the die, certain routes will be blocked off, so you're kind of no longer able to use that. Or sometimes Pan Am will say, hey, we'd like to buy that route from you, so you can get some money potentially to buy more stocks. So that can happen as well. So the game ends after, I believe it's 7 rounds. So the last event card is flipped on the 7th round. You do the round, and then it ends, and then you count whoever has the most stocks, and that person will win. Okay, so when I first saw this game, first of all, I was like, Pan Am? Wasn't that a bad situation? I don't know. Was it? Do you know, Suzanne? I feel like there was a history there or something happened. I don't even think they're around anymore. But I feel that...
Yeah, no, they're not around. I mean, I think that I could be missing it, but I think the history is just that they kind of represent an era of aviation, of customer travel, of like everyday travel that is long gone. I think it's kind of like an icon in that terms when you think about, the old days in the 50s when going on a flight, you get dressed up and kind of the classic stewardess look and all that other stuff. Kind of the Catch Me Now or the movie with Leo DiCaprio and Tom Hanks.
Catch Me If You
Remember
Can.
That one?
Is that the one
Catch
where...
Me If You Can, where like he posed as a pilot for a while. Like, kind of that era.
Got it.
If there was something specific related to me, I don't remember.
Okay.
But that's kind of where... When I see the cover, that's what it evokes to me, personally.
Okay, and I thought this game, looking at it, I was like, I'm not going to like this game. It's going to be kind of campy. Let's take a look. But Prospero Hall, Funko Games have been on a roll. So you know what? I was pleasantly surprised to say that this is a pretty solid game. And I played it with Mumsy. And Mumsy enjoyed it and beat me, by the way. Definitely a game you can play with maybe someone who's not, hardcore gamer or just kind of introduced into game. Or, hey, even people who like to play games. Like, I'd love to play this with Suzanne and Ashley. I think they would really enjoy it. I would lose, but I still think I would enjoy it. The rules in itself are fairly simple. But you do really have to pay attention to a few things that are happening in the game. Knowing where not to build certain routes because they will be taken over at some point. So maybe you do want that because they will be sold off and you'll get money for doing so. So that could be a thing, but maybe you're not ready because you haven't made that route long enough to get the money you need or get your planes back, because once those are sold off, you get those planes back, which you could later use for other routes. Paying attention to other people. Maybe they're kind of getting in on the area where you are, right? And they're trying to get that route built first so they can sell it off to Pan Am. So these are things to consider. You really have to pay attention to what you're doing, but what other people are doing. Or should I buy those airports? So great, that location is done. I know I have that location, but it's going to cost you. And I think I didn't clarify this enough. You have to bid on spaces. So it's not like you can just put your marker there and say, oh, yeah, I have that space. No. Someone could literally come and say, oh, no, I want an airport. So they can bid higher than you. You get your piece back, you have to place it out again. So you mean that airport that could have cost $3 because you thought you were going to get it, by the end of it could have cost $9. And then if you don't have enough money, there are ways for you to get it. But I mean, you're losing out by doing that. You're losing stocks and other things. So you have to manage your money, determine what the best things are, and keeping in mind that someone could be going for the things you're going for. Right? So I find I liked a lot of those things happening, even though the rules make it seem really simple. You really have to strategize about what you want to do and pay attention to what other people are doing. So it's not just you in your own world of the game. So overall, I really enjoyed it. The quality of components for me were a bit of an issue in mine. So the planes are plastic, which is fine, but I had some thick cardboard pieces for the Pan Am tokens, and mine were splitting. So I don't know if that was a me thing or if that was something happening to other people, but that was a bit of an issue for me, and I had a couple of things missing. But again, that could have just been my particular copy. So I can't say across the board if it was a bad thing, but I did have some issues with the cardboard. But cards and stuff, the quality, it's fine. I think you're paying for a $35 game, so expect $35 level of components. So I think that's how you have to go in with that, especially with the cards. But overall, I enjoyed Pan Am. It's if you can find it, I think it's even on sale right now, I would definitely consider picking it up. So Pan Am was a good one.
I don't know, Mandy. This sounds like it would be fun. I'd love to play it with you.
Very good.
Next up for me, a dice version of what is considered to be a classic game in our hobby, Medici Dice. Medici, the dice game. Yes, a roll and write game. Ta-da! And hello, my second Reiner Knizia game of the episode today. I don't know how that worked out. And the art is by the pretty talented, okay artist Vincent Dutrait.
Yep.
And this one's published by Grail Games, and it's going to retail in the US for about $25. Medici is one of those games I really, really like. Medici. Auction game, and it's got some cleverness and how it works overall, and I think it's really withstood the test of time for a lot of us. Then comes Medici, the card game, which personally I fell in love with. And it's one of those games I throw into my little quiver case and carry to conventions because it's got a great player count. Love it. And now, hello, Medici the Dice game, a roll and write game based on Medici. How could I resist, right?
Absolutely.
So in Medici the Dice game, you've got some custom dice and then, of course, a pad of sheets that you're going to distribute, and each player gets one. Basically, the dice have a goods type, gold or indigo or things. All, again, if you're familiar with Medici, these icons and these goods are going to feel familiar because it's the same. And then different values. So from 0 to 5 on the gold piece. The active player on their turn is just going to roll all the dice. They're going to pick 1 to 3 of them to keep for themselves. And then everybody else can pick 1 from the remaining dice to mark on their sheet. So you're going to pick a couple of dice, and you've got 2 areas on your sheet. You've got a set of goods track on the left, and then you've got 3 quote-unquote boat rows on the right. And basically the game plays through essentially 3 rounds, 1 for each of those boats, because a round ends when those boats get filled. So, great, take my dice, and I'm going to write the values in the boat row. 0, 1, 3. Great. And then it's got a little area for me to help keep track of the score, which is kind of nice. So then I've got 4 points on my boat. But the goods matter here. 0, why did I take a 0? That doesn't help me because you want big boat values. Well, a 0 helps me because I can mark double the goods on my goods track for that 0. So, now I get 2 indigo check marks on my indigo track. And then, 1 for the wheat and 1 for the whatever. And that's just how it goes. Meanwhile, other players can take a die and mark it similarly. Then the dice pass, the next player does it. When a boat fills up, they're done for the round until all the players except 1 have their boats filled up. Then you're going to score. You're going to score 3 times. So the first thing you're going to do is add up your boats. Great. Depending on how many points you have in that boat, there's kind of a sliding scale depending on player count for how many points you're going to get. And then you're going to go through the goods tracks and you're going to do some majority scoring there. Who has the most indigo? Who has the most wheat? Things like that. Who has the most cloth? You're going to get points for that as well. 10 points if you've got the majority, 5 points if you've got second, bupkis if you've got less than that. Round 1 done. You're going to repeat it a couple more times, and then whoever has the highest score at the end of the game wins. The interesting thing with that track is that it's ongoing. You don't erase your marks, right? It's this progressive track. So as you fill it up more and more, you can see the leaders, whoever has the most in those tracks, alter throughout the different rounds. Certainly, there are choices to be made in terms of, taking 0s or taking those 5s for a higher boat score. You are kind of trying to keep an eye on what other players are doing so that you can sometimes just have enough, or maybe you're going to give up on one. Like, they're so far ahead of me, I'm not going to worry about that good at all. That kind of thing. At first, the first game I played, I was like, I'm going to take, why would I not just take 3 dice? As you play, you realize, no, you need to be a little smarter about how you're drafting these dice. Don't just take 3. Nope, these are the 2 good dice. I'm going to take this, or this is just the 1 die, because you don't want to be in a situation at the end where you have to make bad choices because your boat's almost full.
Right.
So that was a nice little thing that I had to pick up on as I played. Overall, I liked Medici Dice. I didn't love it. It does oddly feel like it pulls on some critical threads of Medici. We've talked about in the past about, does the dice game or does the card game really reflect the board game? And so often it doesn't. And most of the time, for me, that's okay. In the weirdest way, perhaps, Medici Dice actually feels a lot like Medici in that maybe it's just the setting. Maybe it's the art style is there from Vincent Dutrait. The icons are there. The goods are the same. That concept of filling boats is there. I got the Medici vibe in a weird way from this little roll and write game. But I will say, if I had a choice, especially at a 5-player count, which I often have in my play group, I'm going to pull out Medici the card game, which I will just, this is not a discussion about Medici the card game. If you've not played Medici the card game, you should get it. It's so fun. It's so good. It plays up to 6. Hello.
I second that. Medici the card game is fantastic.
See, Mandy and I both, come on, we are agreeing here, folks.
Gotta
it's
try
a sign. If you love Medici and you want a pretty straightforward roll and write that's not completely bland, because there are some interesting choices in terms of how many dice you take in the moment and looking and paying attention to other people's boards and things like that. I like Medici Dice. I'm glad I have it. I collect roll and write games, so it's staying in my collection. Solid game. Maybe not my favorite in the Medici family. That's Medici Dice.
And I was just about to ask you that if you have Medici, the board game, and then maybe you're deciding between the card and the dice game, like, do you need all three? And okay, I use need with quotation marks, but you know what I mean. Like, if you have one, would that be enough? Or should you do one and this specific one? I don't know, because people are going to want to know.
For me, I have so many games, Mandy. For me, if I had to keep only one Medici game, it's going to be the card game.
Yeah, the card game's pretty good.
I don't know what it is. I mean, I have a sense of what it is about the game, but I love it so much. And then I do like the board game as well, especially with the refreshed art that Grail Games put on it. So I've got that in my collection as well. And to be clear, I have all three. So I currently have all three. But if tragedy happened and I need to call, I think the card game is the one I would keep, followed by the board game, and then followed by the roll and write. But the roll and write's staying because,
of course, the roll and write.
I have a problem.
All right, so the last game I'm going to talk about, I don't know, it makes me want to sing Viva Las Vegas. Ooh, got a little fancy touch in there. Viva Las Vegas. Yes, if you haven't noticed already, the game's going to be about Las Vegas, specifically Las Vegas Royale. So this is designed
Talk about a game that has really stood the test of time.
Well, yeah, because I have the original Las Vegas, and I only recently acquired Las Vegas Royale. And have you played both, Suzanne?
I have not played Las Vegas Royale. I have played copious amounts of Las Vegas. I love it.
Such a good game. That's the one I usually pull out at Canada Day celebrations. So, not recently, but maybe next year. We'll see. So this is designed by Rudiger Dorn, and art is by Antje Stefan and Klaus Stefan, and published by Elia and Ravensburger. It is for 2 to 5 players, and it plays in about 45 to 60 minutes, and it retails for about $48. So the base of Las Vegas Royale is pretty similar to the original. So each player in the game has their own colored set of dice, and you're going to have sections of the board, so they're marked off by with a die that says 1, another one that says 2, 3, all the way to 6. And in each of those areas, you're going to have two kind of, it's money, but they look like cards, right? And they're going to have 2 of those there, and they're ranked from most amount of money to least, I think, depending on the way the wheel works. So 6 would have the most, 5 would have the second most, and so forth, all the way back to 1. And you're trying to win that money in that spot. And you do that by, on your turn, you roll your dice, and if you pick a number of the dice. Let's say I had 3 5s and 2 4s. Maybe I want to place out the 5s. I would place that out into the 5 zone, and then collect my dice, and then the next person would go. And you do that till all your dice are gone, and you have the option of passing as well, and then rolling again on a future turn. You're trying to gain control of that area, so you can gain the highest money card in that area. The game ends after 3 rounds, and then you just count how much money you have. So it's pretty straightforward. In Royale, there are some differences. You have chips, and I don't remember if the chips were in the original one. It's been a while. But you have chips that you can use in order to kind of pass a roll. So it doesn't mean you're out, but you're just going to take that roll and roll again on another time. So you don't place anything out on your turn. So you have chips in this game
I don't
that does
remember that in the
yeah,
base game.
I don't think that was in the base game. So that's in Royale, which makes sense, the chips and everything. And then they have these kind of placards that you can place around the designated areas of the board. So remember how I told you it was separated by, it was 1 die, 2 die, 3 die, those sections. You can put another kind of placard underneath that has other conditions on it. So you have one, if you place dice on, let's say, the 1 spot, and you have one of those placards there, I could have one that says, if I place dice here, I can get a special ability dependent on the number that I put. So I can place let's say it's on the number 1, I could put the 1 die in the 1, and then if I can take one of my other dice that's not a 1 and put it on the card, and it'll give me some kind of bonus. Or I can double my value or double my money by going to a certain space with one of these placards on it. And they usually recommend doing 3, so 3 of them on 3 spaces. You can use less if you want. And then every round you're putting out new ones, and they're double-sided, so you can get different ones to try. So just, I was going to say it ups the ante a little bit. Wow, that was really bad.
Yeah, Mandy. Oh, some days, Mandy.
I know. I'm sorry. But it just adds a little bit of flavor to the game and jazzes it up a bit. So, Las Vegas Royale for me. I like the original. I like this one. It's funny. I played this one with my mom, and I never thought I'd hear her say this. It's kind of light. I liked that Pan Am one more. It had more strategy. I just was like, oh, okay. Now we're just, she's just the gamer, isn't she?
Mumsy's getting into it. I like it.
So it is light. And this is coming from also like my mom, who doesn't play. She plays board games, not a lot lately, but she even found it light. So it's definitely one that is on the lighter spectrum. Doesn't mean it's bad. For me, it's one of those games that I would play with a group because it's 2 to 5 players, so it plays a decent amount.
Yeah.
When you play it with 2, there are changes. You do have to play with like a dummy dice, I guess you could say. So you do have to roll dice and place them out for that dummy player. So then you are vying for control against another player and the dummy dice. But it's not hard to manage. Just keep in mind, if you play it with 2, that is something you have to consider. So really, it's like a 3 to 5 player game if you don't want to have to do all of that upkeep. I think if you were choosing between buying Las Vegas Royale and Las Vegas, I would probably say just to buy Royale. And I'm sure that's probably not what they want to hear because, hey, we're going to lose money. But I don't understand why you would need both, I guess, is my...
No, yeah, why would you? No, not at all.
Yeah, because you can have you can still play this the regular way and then add things to make it more, I say quote unquote difficult, but it's really just changing it up a little bit, getting more money or different ways to get money. So for me, it's fine. It's one of those games I keep in my collection to play with groups of people when I have gatherings, but that's probably the only time it really comes out for me because it's not a heavy thinking game. I do wish the rulebook had a bit more detail in some of the tiles because I find some of them not 100% clear and they're leaving it open to interpretation. And the group that they're potentially putting this game out for may be a little confused by some of the way that it's written. So all in all, Las Vegas Royale, it's a fine game. If you're choosing between the 2, I would probably go this route because it gives you more options. And the box is nice. It's a nice black, clean cover, which I quite enjoy. So Las Vegas Royale, for me, it's good.
It's good looking.
But bear in mind, it is a fairly light game.
Yeah, and you say it that way, but I love Las Vegas so much. Yes.
It's
It
fun.
is light, and that's okay because light games are great.
Absolutely.
Too. To wrap it up, and it feels almost appropriate. We're going to talk about A Gentle Rain. Just a lovely way to wrap up the games that we've been playing.
I have a song for this one. Rain, I feel it. It's coming. Come on, you all know who that is, and if you don't, shame on you.
Yes. And I'm
okay.
Crossing myself,
Thank you.
A Gentle Rain took me by surprise. I had no idea it was coming out. It kind of popped up, and I just saw the designer Kevin Wilson talking about on social media, and the image I saw immediately caught my eye because of its graphic design. Mm-hmm. And this is published by Mondo Games. The graphic design's by Chris Billheimer, and it's going to retail for $22, and you can order it directly from Mondo. I do want to drop a quick disclaimer in here. Through my work, I do interact with Mondo Games in a professional capacity. I have nothing to do with Gentle Rain. I have nothing to do with Kevin Wilson or anything like that, but because I just want to disclaim that little association. But I had no idea this game existed until I saw it from Kevin Wilson. So, but fair's fair. A Gentle Rain is a compact box. So if you're familiar with the Oink games, the cover is going to be about the same dimension, but it's much taller. Oh. So it's a very tiny little box. And this is a solo or maybe a 2-player cooperative game. Very straightforward. And it's when you open the box, you open the lid, and it's just got this little row of tiles and then a little baggie of wooden tokens. The tiles are squares. Imagine squares, but with circular curves notched out of the corners. They've got flowers printed out, or half flowers. So on the edge of each of these tiles is a half of a flower. And the tokens are printed with the pretty art of a full flower on it. So you're going to pull these out, shuffle up the tiles, put it in front of you. And then you're going to pour yourself a comforting, warm beverage and maybe put on some atmospheric music, some sounds, and maybe the sounds of the whales in the background or something like that. You're going to tell the kids to shh, shh, mommy's having a moment, right? And then all you do is you take a tile, you flip it up, and then you place it on the board. And you're just going to try to be aligning those half circles next to each other. As you put tiles next to each other, you want the circle flowers to make a perfect whole flower. Pull another tile, do it again. If you can't place it, you just put it in a discard pile up there, no big deal. Now, when 4 tiles come together in a perfect square, remember those circular notches I mentioned in the corners? The way the corners meet, it creates a little circular hole in your tile tableau. And that's for you to drop one of your little circle tokens in. So if the flowers match one of the tokens that you have remaining, you can drop that token in there and fill that space. Keep on going. The game ends when you drain your tiles or when all 8 of your flower tokens are out in your pretty little tile tableau. Or when your second cup of hot cocoa is done. No, I'm kidding. That's my one.
I like it.
Your score at the end of the game is just how many tiles you have remaining in the stack when your 8th token goes down. If you drain the stack and you still have tokens left, then your score is equal to the number of tokens you have out there. That's the game. Flip a tile, place it, try to drop in pretty little tokens. Very, very simple. Exceedingly pleasant. Just pleasant. And how nice is that? Mandy, if you're not it feels like if your tradition is to take a magazine and have a cup of tea and sit at a table and just have a quiet 25 minutes to yourself, this is a game you can replace with that magazine. There's no setup. Just shuffle the tiles, stack them up, right? You just sit down and relax and kind of thing. And the whole game is set up about this. I mean, the rule book is the rule pamphlet. I mean, There's barely any rules to this. The rule pamphlet, literally on the cover, says, take a deep breath and relax. Like, they're setting the tone there for you. And then literally the first instruction, I'm going to read this too. I actually just pulled out the box next to me.
Great.
Step number 1, get comfortable. Change into some loose clothing if you can. Perhaps turn on soft music or make yourself some tea. Take a moment to stand up and stretch and roll the stress out of your shoulders. Inhale through your nose, hold that breath for a moment, then exhale through your mouth. Step 2, now begin. I mean, holy bejeebers, what's up with that? Like, talk about... I mean, this game is like a life coach, practically.
It sounds like when I'm teaching my, maintaining a healthy work environment with mental health, it's literally similar to how we kind of do it. We use the stop method. Bonus points if you know what that means. But that's literally the feeling, and I like that, especially in the, the environment we're in right now. That is very nice. And tea. I'm all about the tea.
Yeah, and honestly, I've only played this solo. I can see playing it cooperatively with one other person where you're just taking turns, chatting. Like, Mandy, I could imagine us at a coffee shop together. You have tea, I have a latte, and we're just chatting and flipping over tiles and enjoying our company. And the game sets itself up. Like, the game does such a good job of setting up what kind of experience it is.
Right.
And it really fulfills on that promise. Is this a strategic, complex, thoughtful brain burner? No. Is this a lovely experience that gives your brain something to do, gives you something pretty to look at, and for you to have a gaming moment for, 15, 20 minutes? Absolutely. This is the kind of game I would give like my grandparents who love to play like solitaire on the computer. Like, if you have a family member that just plays solitaire kind of by rote, you might want to consider this as like a gift for them, because I think it fills a similar mental space in some ways to that in the best possible way. So, Gentle Rain, lovely solo experience, very nice quality production, a very attractive game. I really enjoyed it.
Could you play it with more players? You know how some games you can add more copies or, get around it, or is it strictly, or I guess you could play it cooperatively solo?
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, you can play it 2-player cooperatively. I think when I stretch it beyond 2 players, maybe with young children.
Okay.
I don't know how 3 adults would sit around and really get as much out of it. I didn't think about 2 copies and stretching it, Mandy. I did not think about. I bet you could.
Okay.
I don't know if I'd want to almost though.
Okay.
Like, I almost feel like the kind of experience this game is evoking and is telling you to sink into, I almost feel like that's not the kind of experience you get with a larger group.
Sure, of course.
But mathematically, I bet it would work.
Especially if you have Ashley playing. Ashley likes to go in hard.
Oh.
Sorry,
There's
Ashley.
no shark in this. Maybe we'll have to make a promo token. The shark flower.
The shark flower. Oh.
So that's A Gentle Rain by Kevin Wilson from Mondo Games.
Look at that. I think we had a well-rounded group of games today. I'm very pleased with that. Brought to you by the Op Games, also known as USAopoly. Today's featured game is The Batman Who Laughs Rising. Save the multiverse and Justice League with The Batman Who Laughs Rising by the Op. From the Dark Knight Metal comic series, the evil hybrid of Batman and Joker, the Batman Who Laughs is determined to destroy the multiverse, and the Justice League needs to stop him. In this co-op dice engine building game, gather your team and roll the dice to stop darkness from sweeping over the multiverse. Can you survive and save the multiverse? Available now at theop.games or at your local game store today.
Order up!
And now, it's time to order up a slice of game pie.
As we've been talking about game pie and kind of different topics, Mandy and I realized that doing an artist-focused game pie could be a ton of fun. Our hobby is blessed with amazing illustrators who share their talents and make the games that we love better through their contributions. And we thought it would be super fun to occasionally do a game pie that recognizes that element of board games that we haven't done in a game pie before. And so today, our game pie is serving up a delightful palette of Vincent Dutrait games.
Yes.
Now, when you look in Board Game Geek, Vincent Dutrait has over 133 listings
So many.
attributed to him. Wow. That's a lot.
Agreed.
So we definitely were awash. And, as Mandy, I don't know about you, but when I was scrolling through this long list, it was hard to choose because they're so beautiful. His work is so gorgeous and colorful and rich, and you know what you're looking at, but it's not realism. It's got this artistic flair to it, but it just helps you sink into the setting of the game. And
Absolutely.
Isn't that perfect? Isn't that kind of a core thing that you want out of an illustration in a board game? And boy, oh boy,
yeah.
Vincent seems to get that one right all the time. So I don't know, it's hard to choose.
But you can tell his work too, which is nice. So
Great point. There is this feel, right, to his look. He's established kind of an aesthetic that feels like him, that's recognizable, that's really, really cool. And I don't blame board game publishers for trying to select him because I think he brings in his own fan base. Oh, wait, what's this game? Okay. Whoa, wait, Vincent Dutrait is illustrating it? Oh, I know at least that's how I react.
Oh, for sure. Me too. Absolutely. So let me start off with my slice of Vincent Dutrait pie. Yeah. So the first game is going to be very familiar because I think it was on last episode's list, but Detective City of Angels. I mean, it doesn't help that I like the era that it kind of takes place in. So it has like that 40s, potentially going to 50s feel to it, and I think the art is really well done and it captures the essence of the game, being a detective game set in those times. So I really appreciate it. I like the use of the color because it still illustrates nicely with the colors that's been chosen, but it has that kind of dark feel to it because it is kind of a dark topic, but still pops. So Detective City of Angels for me, I really like the art here.
It's beautiful. First slice for me, Battlefold.
Ooh, good choice.
Thank you. And Battlefold is a fun game that leverages this fold-it mechanism where you get a soft fabric sheet, board, I don't know what you want to call it, and you're folding it to meet certain criteria so that certain things are showing on the folded packet. And in Fold It, it was very, very simple. Match this pattern. Get these icons showing, done. Battlefold added extra gameplay elements to it. And here comes Vincent's art where he made like a battle cat on it, right? And one of the reasons why I love Battlefold as a representation of Vincent's work is it's different than what you often see. Where I think Detective City of Angels is a little more aligned to what he most often does with people and settings, right? But I feel like Battlefold gave him a chance to get a little more wacky with his characters, and boy, he rose to the challenge because it's just a really fun, beautiful game. So that's why Battlefold is my first slice of Vincent pie, which sounds weird.
It does, actually. I was surprised that he did the art for this one at first. I mean, yes, you could kind of tell, like, it kind of looks like him, but I don't think I've ever seen him do something like this before. So I thought that was really different. And then speaking of animal-esque type features on the game, my next one is Roar. So Roar is a game that I
haven't played that one.
Well, and the reason why it's here, so this is going to sound a little weird. So Roar is a game that I would like to play again. So when I played it, I had only played an unfinished copy. And there were some issues with the game, but I think if I played it again, I might have different thoughts on it. But the cover of this game it's using real animals, like lions are on the cover. And it's cool because you get the different illustrations of the lion, the side view, the front view, and it's really soft versus like the title is roar, strong and aggressive, but then the lions, you have that kind of roar, but then the soft kind of features of the lion as well. And I think you really captured that there. So now let's be clear. I am not an artist, so maybe I'm not using the correct words, but I can tell when I like something and I think it's well done. So this is a game that I really liked the art in, and I'd be curious to see more of animal kind of art from Monsieur Dutrait.
And I think that that's a good element to kind of call forward, is that this is just not games that we think are pretty. These are games that we enjoy that also are pretty and elevated, we feel, by this artist's work. And that stands true for my next game, Rising 5, a deduction game with app enhancement. Very clever and unique, really, in the sphere and how they used it, because it uses your camera and codes and all this other stuff. I like Rising 5 a lot. I like the setting. It's kind of a space setting, sci-fi setting. And similar to Battlefield, a setting that I don't often see Vincent get to do. And I loved it. I loved it. The aliens, the sense of color, everything that it brought really enhanced my experience playing Rising 5. And that's why it was my next slice.
Very nice. I have not played this one. This is one I would actually really like to try, but I have not. So on the list to try for next time. So this next game, I played this game a lot when it came out during my lunch breaks at work, and that is Raptor. And again, another game that I was like, oh, this is another game by Vincent Dutrait. And I was like, wow, like it's different than what I normally would see because the color palette is a little different, right? You're using more kind of yellows and reds and it's a bit more faded out. And you're doing a completely different type of animal, but with people. And I think the way that the art was used definitely had that rough feel because we're against raptors and dinosaurs and we're scientists. So it definitely went with the feel of the game. But Raptor is the 2-player game. And, I'm very bad at it, but some people one person plays the scientist, the other person plays the, raptors or dinosaurs in this case, and you're obviously trying to be the last one standing on the map. It's not everyone's cup of tea, but I definitely think it's one you should try it and see if you like it. And try both sides. Sometimes you prefer playing one character over another. So Raptor for me, yes, super good.
And see, for me, Raptor was just not one that clicked with me, exactly like you were saying. I can appreciate the art on it, though, for sure.
Yes.
My next slice is 100 Tori from Pencil First Games. I love this game. I love this tile laying game where you're laying tiles and you're following paths and you're getting all these different things, collections of little things. And it's so colorful. And my criticism of 100 Tori was that because the iconography is critical.
Right.
It covers up some of the art. And I'm like, no, I want more of the illustrations. I wish the tiles were bigger or something so I could see more of the gorgeous art. And this game is so darn pretty. And the game is super duper fun. I appreciate the things they had to do with graphic design to make it more playable. But, I do wish I could just get a little bigger peek at some of the beautiful illustrations that Vincent did for 100 Tori. Wonderful game, wonderful art.
This is a game I really want to play, but I don't think it plays solo, does it?
Not that I know of.
Yeah, so this is one I might have to wait, but yes, the art on this one was quite good. So my last selection here, my last slice of pie, and I had a song here. It's but I can't use it because I'd have to replace the name. That is starting to get complicated, but my Canadians know the Tragically Hip, and you will all know what song I'm thinking of. I'm going to leave it right there. So Atlantis Rising is the game I'm talking about, and it's a cooperative game, and you're basically trying to stay afloat. You want, the areas that you're on to not sink, and you all expire. That's not the point. We want to keep it active.
My goodness.
I know, that got a little dramatic, sorry. But you're working together to make sure that all areas that you're in stay afloat, and then there's an objective you're trying to work toward before that happens. And there's a bit more detail to the game, but you understand the idea. And I think this game's been around for a while. Like, have they not had a reprint? Or maybe I'm thinking of a different game.
Well, there's an older version, right? And then Atlantis Rising comes back through Elf Creek Games, I think.
That's correct. Yes.
Right, and
so that's the version
completely refreshed it and brought a lot to it, I think.
Yes, and when you see the color palette that's used, I mean, you instantly think of water and, Atlantis. When you think of Atlantis, these are the colors that you associate with it. And it's definitely more true to what I've seen of Vincent Dutrait's art. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I can definitely pinpoint that. Again, very nice, fits the theme of the game, and that's the whole point, right? And the game itself is quite fun. So Atlantis Rising, very good one.
And that is one I have not had a chance to play. And I realized, I was talking to you and Ashley about this recently, that I am going to stop saying I don't care for cooperative games, because it's very, very clear as time has passed that it's certain type of cooperative games that don't click for me, but some do. So knowing that you like Atlantis, I feel like...
I think you would like this one, honestly.
I think I need to try it. And for our last serving of game pie, full of beautiful Vincent Dutrait games, Longhorn. I will praise Longhorn left, right, north, south, east, west, forever. 2-player game, uses a very fun mechanism as you're moving cattle and rustling cattle and collecting cows of different colors, and that dictates how far you can move. And oh my goodness, I love this game so much. I just love the mechanisms. I would love Longhorn if it was black and white line drawings and cubes. The game is so entertaining and fun to me as a 2-player game. But then you toss on this art from Vincent Dutrait, and it's just wonderful.
So good.
And you technically play these 2 cattle rustling characters. And normally I wouldn't really care about that stuff, but they have such character to them that you kind of get into it as you're playing. You almost take on a role sometimes as you're playing this what is essentially an abstract game. Right. But because the illustration has done such a great job of bringing the setting to life, it sinks you further into the game. Again, wonderful work by Vincent Dutrait in Longhorn. I'd recommend it as a 2-player game, no matter what, but throw on that beautiful art. It is a no-brainer for 2 people.
Add it to the list. This is one I know you've spoken a lot about and that you really like it, so I've never tried it. So this is
Mandy,
what
you have a copy? If you don't have a copy, I'm sending you a copy because I'm going to make you play this game with me.
I will get a copy.
Okay. There you have it, folks. Our Game Pie focused on the beautiful work of Vincent Dutrait in board games. Let us know if you like this. Let us know if you think Game Pie highlighting artists, illustrators in board games is fun for you. And if not, good, that's okay too. Let us know. We don't know. We can't enter your minds. We're working on it. Ho ho ho. Evil cackle here.
Indeed.
No. But love to get your feedback on our Vincent Dutrait Game Pie. Of course, always open to more suggestions for game title polls, Game Pie themes, any questions you have about board games, or I don't know. What else could they ask us about, Mandy? Songs from Canada, apparently.
So I think Ashley suggested that I make the titles of the podcast maybe songs that songs I've been singing in podcasts or something like that, or that I'll sing in the podcast. I don't know. I have so many.
So many. And yes, thank you, everybody. I got the message. The Rainbow Song is technically real.
I forgot to bring that up. Yes! I did sing it a little fast last time, so it is a slower melody. So if you go back and listen to it, or I can sing it here again, totally up to you.
No, I'm good.
You can go back and just slow it down. And I swear to you, I had so many people thought I was making that up. And then I saw Eric Summer was like, no, I have heard this song. You are not making it up. So
Thanks a lot, Eric.
So check it out. It is real. It exists. And it's very relaxing.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you want to email me to commiserate about the Rainbow Song, you can reach me at Suzanne@dicetower.com.
And if you want to say, yeah, Mandy, we're in your corner. We know the Rainbow Song. It's awesome. You can message me at Mandy, that's Mandy with an I, @dicetower.com.
As always, folks, it's such a pleasure and privilege to be here podcasting and be part of your extended gaming family. Thank you so much for listening. We really, really appreciate you. Next episode, Mandy 708. Woo! You are joining Tom and Eric for Come on, Mandy, say it.
Oh, the oh-so-simple list of best games that begin with Z, or if you're American, Z. Oh, dear.
Dun, dun, dun.
So,
Cool.
disclaimer, I'm probably going to do games that have Z in the title. There's no way I can come up with 10.
We'll see what Tom has to say about that. I can't wait. Good luck, Mandy.
Oh.
Until next time, I'm Suzanne Sheldon.
And I'm Mandy Hutchinson.
And you've been listening to The Dice Tower.
Thanks for listening. Promotional consideration has been provided by game publishers in the form of review copies of games. This podcast is sponsored by listeners like you. Thank you for your continued support. And speaking of support, the Jack Vassal Memorial Fund is an organization dedicated to helping gamers in need. Learn more about the fund's mission and how you can help at jackvassal.org. The Dice Tower is produced by Tom, Suzanne, Mandy, and Eric with assistance from Roy Cannaday and Rob Searing. Our theme is composed by Timothy Pinkham and arranged by Matt Bellier. Let us know what you think of the show by posting to the Dice Tower Guild at BoardGameGeek.com, following the Dice Tower on Twitter, or by emailing us at podcast@dicetower.com. And don't forget to visit the other shows in the Dice Tower Network at dicetowernetwork.com. Until next time, from all the gang at the Dice Tower, have fun gaming. All right, everyone, it's that time again for Two Truths and a Lie, so let me reveal mine from last episode. I like mini eggs, I like eggies, and I like cream eggs.
What the heck are eggies?
Eggies are candy-coated chocolate that look like eggs, but they're slightly bigger than a mini egg. Slightly different flavor.
Okay.
One's made by Cadbury and one's made by Hershey, maybe? I could be wrong. Cream eggs, if you said that was the lie, that would be correct. Those, and I'm sorry, are disgusting. They are pure sugar. They will rot your teeth, but I know they're very popular, so just not my thing.
Fair enough. Last episode, I said I still have my Nintendo Game Boy Color. I still have my Nintendo Game Boy. And I still have my Nintendo Game Boy Advance. And unfortunately, the lie is that I still have my Game Boy. No, I thought I was being nice and I gave it to my cousin.
Aww.
Now I kind of wish I hadn't. But oh well. But I still have my Game Boy Color and my Game Boy Advance.
Well, that is
and so
very nice gesture.
my little retro gaming needs are kind of fulfilled there.
I see that. So new this episode, I think I'm on a video game thing, so I've been playing a lot of them. Here we go. So I like to play RPG video games. I like to play sports video games. And I like to play adventure video games. There you go.
I know the answer. And new for me this episode, I like Marvel United, I like Marvel Legendary, and I like Marvel Champions.
Oh, I so know the answer to this one. Good luck, everyone.